So, what are some of the challenges you face as an executive today of a 10-person, large impact, but relatively small staff? What are some challenges you face day to day now?
So definitely the need to do more for our community, the need to innovate, the need to understand what are those new things that can help us increase our efficiencies
Hmm.
while we're continuing to do the work. And then funding. We're all very challenged within the nonprofit space.
Yeah.
Many would assume because Tempe Community Council has this close partnership with the city that everything is taken care of for us.
Welcome to Grow Healthy, Help People, a podcast that Accordis puts out. Today we're talking with Octavia Harris with the Tempe, Arizona Community Council. Octavia, welcome.
Thanks, Shae. Glad to be here.
Is your day going well?
It is going very well. It's still very early for me.
There you go. So many people have heard of Tempe, Arizona, but may not know much about that area. Give us a little bit of an overview. Who lives in Tempe? What is the culture there like? Tell us some things that you love about that area.
Yeah, Tempe is a very, very diverse, multicultural city. We're known more as a college town because Arizona State University got its start right here in Tempe. Um, and we actually have the most diverse city council within the state of Arizona. We also have a number of people who are of Hispanic and Latino descent. So Spanish is one of the most prevalent languages other than English here. And so that means that we have great food culture. We have a really positive community that really loves to help each other come together. We have one of the only man-made lakes in Tempe, and I'm sorry, in the Phoenix area. So we have Tempe Lake, um, and that brings a lot of visitors to our community. So people who like to do paddle boarding, they're not close to the ocean. They can take advantage of Tempe Beach Park.
That's fun. You also mentioned that you're right beside an airport. So I
Yes.
heard the airplane taking off a minute ago. That's just part of your life. You hear it all day, every day, right?
Yes, so much so that I don't even notice it anymore until
That's
someone
great.
points it out.
That's great. And so you mentioned to me that you've been in that area in that role for how long?
So I've been in my current role for over 7 years, and I've been in Tempe for close to 10 years doing work.
That's great. Have you been in the nonprofit space for your whole career, or have you worked in for-profit businesses and then now you've been in a nonprofit space? Tell me about a little bit about your career leading up to the role you have now.
Yes, so actually, I did work in for profit prior to making the transition to eventually working in nonprofits, which close to the past 20 years I've been doing that.
Okay.
I worked for a large Fortune 500 multinational corporation in their operations department, building operations. So having to understand everything from A to Z on how to keep a commercial property going, and
Yeah.
inside and outside. Um, and dealing with things that you wouldn't necessarily deal with in a regular office space because it was for a large retailer. And so, really had my opportunity to work my way up from an entry level role to management within that corporate area. And then decided I wanted to pivot. I wanted to go work for nonprofits. I had a brief stint doing real estate, working as a realtor,
Yeah.
but then still, nonprofits after having the opportunity to volunteer with a faith group and then with community organizations. Really wanted to work professionally where I could align my values with the mission of an organization.
That's awesome. So going from the big Fortune 500 world, frequently that shift into the nonprofit world means going from big company, huge budgets, all kinds of resources to, okay, this is now a small nonprofit or small business that you're running. You're running, say, okay, there's less resources, there's less personnel, there's less policies and procedures and manuals and that sort of thing. And we just got to figure it out. So tell me about your team now in the Tempe Community Council. How many folks are on your team now? What does that team look like?
So my team is actually a mix of ages and stages. Um, it's actually my team is primarily all women. I only have a couple of gentlemen on the team, and
Yeah.
they actually work pretty seasonally. They're a
Okay.
mixture of full time, part time, as well as contract staff.
Okay.
to help ensure that our programs and services get out there to the community. So I have a staff of about 10.
Yeah.
And then we actually work with, again, some contractors to help fill in those gaps.
So tell me more about the programs of the community council. What do
Yeah.
you do? What does that look like day to day?
Yeah, so we're human services focused, and so we have a number of programs that serve primarily youth as well as their connected families. So we operate the largest free tax preparation site within the city of Tempe. We offer a free clothing and personal care item resource closet for youth. Actually, they're more like boutiques, and they're located at 3 different high schools within the school district. Yeah, yeah. And so we're able to serve students who live in Tempe as well as come from surrounding communities. So we go beyond the actual borders of the city that we're located in. We also offer some free childcare scholarships for parenting teens, as well as transportation scholarships. And we administer grant programs on behalf of the city of Tempe. So to keep politics out of a grant making process, we actually take that on. We engage community members who serve as volunteers. We orient them on how to read grant applications, as well as make recommendations on dollars. And so then the dollars are going to the highest needs. We also help the community understand what are those social services needs, because we conduct a comprehensive needs assessment every 3 years or so
For
that
the whole community, for the whole
for the whole
area.
community. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we tend to work with a consultant to help us do that, because they're doing focus groups, they're doing surveys, they're doing interviews, small town halls, things like that, to be able to help us understand what are those needs of the community. And so then we're more informed, and we help our volunteers to be more informed.
That's awesome. Some organizations deal primarily with policy and advocacy, and it seems like you guys have your hands and feet in the dirt working with people day in and day out. Are you mostly overseeing grants and working with other nonprofits, or are you running some of these programs on your own where you've got staff in the schools or you got staff doing these tax prep classes and that sort of thing?
Yes, we're doing both, right? We're on both sides of things. So we have our direct services that I talked about, and so we have staff members who oversee that, and they recruit volunteers, train those volunteers on how to operate the threads, which is our resource closets or more boutiques, as well as training volunteers who are IRS certified to prepare taxes. And so we did, yeah, so then we have the staff who are supervising those volunteers in both of those instances. And you mentioned policy and advocacy. We have a youth prevention coalition where we want youth to focus on being their best selves, without the utilization of illicit substances. So things that can hook them and take their attention away from having fun with friends or engaging in their academics, so that they can have the best life after they've completed high school. So we don't want youth to vape or to use tobacco or to use alcohol before they're of age. We want them to make those decisions when they're older and their brains are much more developed. They're not quite as impulsive, and they're making good choices. And so we have a youth focused prevention coalition, and we've actually done work with at the local level as well as at the state level to help get ordinances and state laws passed to increase the age of marijuana usage, and ensure that youth continue to understand, especially being in a college town, if you're under 21, let's not drink yet. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's take those choices.
that's awesome. You guys are involved in a lot of things.
We
That
are.
sounds like a wide span of things you got to have your mind on and thinking about at one time. That's pretty great.
Absolutely.
So tell me
Absolutely.
about your leadership journey. I know you went from the Atlanta area you mentioned to me earlier, and now
Yeah.
you're in Arizona. Did
Mhm.
you move to Arizona to begin this role, or did you have other similar looking roles that led into this role?
I had other similar roles. I'm so glad you're asking that, because I've had the opportunity to work with, like I live in state number 48 now, and I've also lived in state 49 and state 50 because I've lived in Alaska and Hawaii and done work in both of those places, as well as living and working in Washington state. And so I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different cultural communities and to understand what their lives are like, doing a lot of listening. And so I didn't make the leap entirely from a large corporation to a small nonprofit. My journey meant that it's like over time, things got a little smaller, but the work increased. So I actually had the opportunity to work with the Hawaii Department of Education doing community engagement in rural Hawaii, on the big island of Hawaii, and living in Alaska, lived in the second largest city in Alaska, Fairbanks, and doing prevention focused work as well as policy change and advocacy there. Washington State doing college access and success. And through all of these different experiences, had the opportunity to learn and understand not just the work that was my primary focus, but also what are those things that are connected. So having to understand homelessness. So if I'm working on prevention, who are those folks that need to have more targeted, focused information that may not have reached them, right? People who maybe have mental health challenges. I had the opportunity to work for a youth behavioral health residency program. So understanding the challenges of those youth. And so that carries me forward to the really broad mission that we have here at Tempe Community Council.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a quite a journey to get from where you were to where you are now. That's
Yes.
incredible. So, what are some of the challenges you face as an executive today of a 10-person, large impact, but relatively small staff? What are some challenges you face day to day now?
So definitely the need to do more, the need to do more for our community, the need to innovate, the need to understand what are those new things that can help us increase our efficiencies while we're continuing to do the work. And then funding. We're all very challenged within the nonprofit space. Many would assume because Tempe Community Council has this close partnership with the city that everything is taken care of for us. No, we still we have an up to 22-person member board who I'm constantly encouraging them to engage in our fundraising efforts. And they're fantastic sort of evangelists for us, spreading the word about who we are and what we're doing, and really just trying to ensure that people recognize who we are, recognize our brand, because again, in that fundraising space, and then just encouraging collaborations. And when do we find time in the day to do that? For me to connect with other nonprofits so that the work that we're doing is leveraged and increased twofold or threefold. Yeah.
Leadership can be lonely. What do you do when you find that, man, I'm leading an organization, I'm around great people, but you probably felt that at some point that leadership can be lonely. What are resources or relationships that you lean on to help you grow as a leader?
Right. So I try to be really intentional about it. When I had the opportunity to work with a college access and success program, and the focus was on that success through mentoring, got to learn a lot about mentoring, and really try to apply those principles to myself and seek out mentors for myself. And so that meant that along the way, it would be women or men who I was like, oh, I appreciate their leadership style. I appreciate those nuggets or gems that they drop. And so I reach back into my network of mentors. But then I also try to be really intentional about engaging with my state nonprofit alliance. So shout out to AZ Impact for Good. And so they've actually started doing things like CEO ED sessions where we have the opportunity to talk about really important things. And then I just try to ensure that I make those friendships, but then outside of work, ensure that I do have healthy friendships and personal relationships too.
Yeah, that's critical. People that think, man, I've got all the resources I need on my own. I don't need anybody. I kind of think, man, they're missing a lot because we're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to do this in relationship and to be encouraged by those around us consistently. That's awesome. Tell me about your leadership team at Tempe Community Council. Who do you have that are close around you that help you lead the organization?
My gosh, because we're so much smaller, it's like all hands on deck. You know, even our part-time staff who tend to be younger. We actually have a couple of Gen Zers who are on staff, which is helpful to get their perspective, right? And so I'm leaning into everyone. I'm feeling like everyone has that opportunity to lead from wherever they are. I do have a chief program officer who helps to oversee the majority of our programs. And our prevention work is headed up by someone who has deep experience in the community. And so leaning into those folks. But my board of directors have a dynamite executive leadership team that I can really go to for any advice and, utilize them as thought partners.
That's awesome. I'm a firm believer in it. You don't have to tap someone on the shoulder and say, "Hey, now I want you to lead." You can look at your team and say, "Oh, they're leading and they're leading and they're leading." I was encouraged the last week. Somebody who's leading one of my departments at Accordis, the company that I own, said, "Hey, I've decided to replace myself in this role and I've promoted this person to my position." Thought how great they didn't even ask me. They gave somebody a major leadership role within the company and they just made that decision on their own. You probably see the same thing where you look at people and say, "Man, I don't know what they have about them, but they're a leader. They know how to lead." And I'm sure you're around that all the time. So, as we're wrapping up, what's an encouraging word you can give to other nonprofit leaders that might be watching this podcast that are thinking, "Man, I'm either in over my head, my board is challenging, budget's too tight, resources are not sufficient." What's an encouraging word you can give those leaders?
Say, definitely take a step back. Take a moment, take a breath. Self care is so important in this work that we're doing. And make sure that if you have a network, you're tapping into that network. And if you don't, now is the time to start to build that. There is someone there that you can trust. Don't isolate yourself. There is someone that you can trust that can actually be a confidant for you and can be like I said, a really great thought partner. Because as you mentioned, we're not meant to do this work alone. So being in community with others who are doing this work is really going to encourage you in what you're doing. So don't go it alone. Reach out and connect with someone.
What's the ancient African proverb? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Something
Together.
like that.
Yes.
We're meant to do
Yes.
this in relationship. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Octavia, so good to talk with you. Tempe Community Council is an organization that you're leading and you're making a huge impact there in your area. So thank you for doing the work you do and thanks for taking time to talk with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
If anybody who's watching this needs back office support, that's what the Accordis team does. So if you need accounting, marketing, database support, if you have the leadership stuff nailed down but need stuff in the back office, let us know. Accordis, and we'll put Octavia's contact information as well as our Accordis contact information in the closing slide of this podcast. Octavia, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too, Shae.